good morning, AFC Bournemouth fans. Well, I say good. It doesn't feel like it. Last night, AFC Bournemouth went down 1-0 to 10-man Crystal Palace. And with me on the line is Cherry's fan, Ross Devonport. Ross, how are you?
Morning, Sam. Good, mate. As well as could be, I guess.
Yeah. Now, some people may have heard you before because you've been on the podcast a while ago, and there's a slight twang with your accent. You're over in the United States, aren't you?
Yeah, been over here since '92. Grew up in Harrow, Middlesex, but my nan lived in Bournemouth, so I spent all my holidays there, and that's how I became a Bournemouth fan, really. And I came back for the promotion playoff game back in the day, and I was over for a Man City game a couple of years ago, and obviously been following the boys since the mid to late '80s.
Yeah, and of course, I'm sure that never in your wildest dreams did you ever expect us to get in the Premier League. And now we are here. It's all brilliant. Apart from last night, I don't know. It seems like it feels the lowest point that we felt since being in the Premier League. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was almost comforting for Eddie to say that last night in the interview, because we all felt it. And being our fearless leader, we all want him to feel the same way we do after games. And I think last night it sort of hit us like a brick, though, too, saying that this is the really lowest point he's been as a manager. And we sort of felt it last night, I think, for different reasons, just because of how we started this season and just some of the injuries and coming off that win over Man U and the disappointing results since. I think it's a real low point for us.
It's strange because at the start of the season, I was feeling probably the most optimistic I've ever felt in each of the Premier League campaigns based on the personnel that we've got. I mean, I knew that we obviously had some injuries that would be quite frustrating, for instance, David Brooks, but I didn't think we'd be struggling to attack the way we have been recently. And we've just not really clicked this year, have we? Apart from maybe Southampton away, and I mean, I think our best performance possibly was Everton at home, where we won 3-1 because, we scored a number of goals there. But what do you think's gone wrong this season so far?
Yeah, it's been very strange. We've seen patches of it, as you said. And I wrote in my notes that, I think one of the biggest things we thought coming into this season was going to be our depth. It was the most depth we've ever seen as a club. And I think, we're going to have injuries here and there, but I think what's happened is we've seen that, we have depth in numbers, but perhaps we don't have depth and as much talent as we thought. Perhaps except at centre mid, but only because, the injuries there have hurt us as well with Gosling and Sermon. And, as much as some people malign those two, and they do provide a bit of oomph coming off the bench, especially defensively, and just that sort of team chemistry that we need. I'm not sure. We've obviously got a lot of new players, which is going to take time to come together. It just really hasn't happened yet. I think that's kind of the frustrating part. It was our high expectations coming in and where we are at the moment. Yeah,
no, I agree. And it's a funny one last night because if you take that match on its own, yes, it was a poor performance. We've had many poor performances in the Premier League. Playing against a team of 10 men sometimes is, as Eddie Howe said and a lot of media pundits said, a little bit harder because the opposition sort of tend to galvanise. But I mean, Wolves found that in the second half against us when we had 10 men. But the fact it's just our lack of attacking flair and the fact that it's the culmination of a series of poor performances. And I said on a forum, I can't remember where, but it's almost like people look at the league table with a sort of like, can I criticise? Oh no, we're top 10. No, I can't. But the performances haven't been there at all. And I mean, yesterday against Crystal Palace, we only got a couple of shots on goal. Well, I think we got 5 shots in total, and there were only a couple on target. But how much of the game did you see?
Just the extended highlights, about 10 or 11 minutes or so. Yeah. The Billing chance, I think, was one which just sort of kind of summed it up. As sort of just, I know he needs a goal as well, just as much as Solanke does and Callum, just to kind of get off his streak. But yeah, that was a good chance. And I don't know, the stuff you're saying about in the middle of the park, we all thought Lewis Cook was going to be sort of the saviour in that regard with the creativity and the vision that he has. Obviously, being away for as long as he has, and he hasn't been able to sort of keep a spot in the lineup, for a consistent amount of time. And we've seen what's happened when you give the likes of Liz Mousset minutes. Obviously, that's a touchy subject for a lot of people. Whether we got a lot of money for him, which is okay, but he's obviously seen an extended run in the team. And I think the fact that we're so loyal to Eddie hurts a lot of people as well, because you've seen on the forums and on Facebook a lot, especially last night, people going back and forth about is it time to make a change? I mean, I don't think it is, obviously. I think it's just going through a little rough patch. I think these next two games, I think people are obviously scared of these next two games. Chelsea aren't what they used to be. Obviously, Liverpool have looked beatable at times this year. I think these two games sort of come at a good point, actually, now with these losses, because what do we have to lose here to maybe perhaps make a change or two? Whether it's a change of formation or a change of personnel. I think Callum will certainly get a rest likely on Saturday, especially if being's healthy. What have we got to lose by changing things up a little bit in these next two games?
Yeah, I agree, and I know there are some people that do not want us to be using the sort of phrase "free hit," but basically that's what they are now. I think Chelsea maybe is less of one, because West Ham got a result there, and they did extremely well. Liverpool less so, but I still feel it's a game where Eddie can experiment. Now, we seem to have this rigid 4-4-2 formation, which I'm not sure it's providing us with the flexibility that we sort of need. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not putting us in the same attacking bracket as Liverpool, Man City, even Leicester that sometimes go 4-4-3. But it wasn't so long ago that Bournemouth and Leicester were sort of regarded in the same footballing bracket, and they've played 4-3-3 quite well, and that seems to give the players a lot of space, a lot of width. And I don't know, at the moment we just seem to be like really stunted in attack, and there seems to be no room. We used to flow up the pitch, and our counterattacks were something of joy, but it seems like for instance, whenever Dan Juma picked up the ball yesterday, or even Ryan Fraser when he came on, there was someone right in front of him straight away. And I don't know, it's just really frustrating to see. I mean, do you think teams have just wised up to the way we play, and they just know how to counter us? For instance, is Eddie Howe being tactically outthought?
I think perhaps that's part of it, especially when you go down to 10 men, where we can be a counter-attacking side when we're not most effective. At that point, you just sit back and say, come at us, because I was watching the highlights last night, and there was points where, the Crystal Palace player would have the ball, it was Zaha most in particular, we'd be like, oh man, what's he going to do here? I'm scared of him. I remember somebody told me Mepham was starting. I said, Zaha's probably going to make him cry at some point, which he almost did. Because he's one of those players that gives you that threat. We just don't have that. I think Danjuma is really the only player in the last 10 games that I've seen come on, and I'm like, all right, he's somebody that's got a little bit of that edge. We don't have anybody with that edge at the moment, and it's been super frustrating. And who do we have that's world class? Is there anybody in our 11, maybe Ake and perhaps Lerma, that would start for a big 6 team?
Probably.
And Eddie needs to realize, that you have to be flexible these days, because the management's so good, the tactical analysis is so good, the video analysis, you've got to be able to change on the fly. And it seems, I know the word has been thrown around of him being stubborn, perhaps with certain players, one who came off the bench last night, and with our tactics, the 5-4-1. I don't follow any other team as closely as us, so I'm not sure how many other teams also, change their formation just because of who we're playing. It seems like we need to find something and stick to it, perhaps, on a consistent basis to start games. And then if we need to change to that 4-3-3, that's why that wing back system for a lot of teams is good, because it can be, that hybrid sort of 5-4-1, 4-4-5-1, however you want to look at it, or 3-5-1, 3-5-2, whatever when you have that flexibility, it just seems. But it seems we struggle even more though when our players don't know what the role is. So I'm not sure. I think leadership we saw what happened last night with Cookie being out. He's obviously our leader, our vocal leader. Ake, stepped up in that regard as well, but he's still so young.
Yeah, that's right.
And we just didn't have that leader on the field last night that was getting GM up and change things around.
Have you got any experience of sort of wrist injuries or whatever? Because that's what happened with Steve Cook. I don't know if he's broken a bone in his wrist or something, but are these things that he can sort of get over quite quickly and with some sort of strapping up or anything? Or
well, coming from here in the NFL, these players will strap anything up and play on, especially when it comes to hand or wrist, because they're obviously not, if you're a defensive lineman, that's not quite needed as much as, say, if you're a wide receiver. So
yeah,
there had to have been some, I would think, some sort of complication last night where somebody mentioned, I think it was on the Solent pregame, that who knows what the rules are these days in the Premier League when it comes to padding and protection on certain players. We've seen guys with the face masks when they've got cheek injuries, etc. I think that's why we're hoping he'll be okay to go on Saturday. But it's a little concerning. But yeah, we definitely missed him last night.
Yeah, it was horrible. Sort of around 70 minutes just before Palace scored, because the writing was on the wall. Really, I mean, when Zaha went through on goal, and then Chris Mepham sort of strongly pushed him over. That really showed what was to come. I think it was Ayew did the same thing. Fortunately, he didn't manage to get a shot on goal, but we opened up all of a sudden, and then it was it Schlopp who scored for Crystal Palace? I think it was, but I mean it just opened up for him, and I think Chris Mepham was a little bit at fault, really. If he tried to show him down the line, or show him a wide angle, but he managed to get a shot on Ramsdale. I think could have done better, but we just didn't have that that attacking threat on the other side. As you say, Lerma had a late shot, and we ended up 1-0, losing 1-0. And have you seen any of the post-match interviews? Because Eddie Howe was sort of visibly upset.
Yeah, I mean, I heard he actually went to the fans around halfway there and apologised to I can't imagine there was too many Bournemouth fans sitting around there just because it was an away game. But I think he went and apologised. Yeah, the goal was. I mean, I think that's part of the frustration too. Is that the goal came. We were down 10 men. It was from one of their subs that was playing not out of position, but he's more of a wing back traditionally, Schlupp, when they do play in that system. And yeah, it was a frustrating goal. If you actually watch it, I watched it a couple of times, and Lerma just took a really poor angle at it. I don't know whether he was actually a little heavy-legged, and Mepham, and maybe it's only Jeff Schlupp. It's not, but he scored plenty of goals for them from that spot. And Ramsdale, perhaps could have done a little better, but it was a well-struck shot, and sometimes that's all you need to put it in the back of the net. And we only managed the 2-1 goal, one which was that tame one from Billing. The other one was a half-decent save from Guaita. But yeah, it's just one of those nights where sort of everything came together at the end and left us feeling as we are today.
Yeah. So Crystal Palace, they're now in 5th position. That's just the mad nature of this league at the moment.
Yeah.
And just put a few runs together, and you can go up. And that's why I think that the league table was a terrible gauge of how to judge your team. I think it has to be just on performances. But to their credit, they stuck in and did very well. And as much an old dinosaur as Roy Hodgson is, as I said on my last video, that's how people regard him. He seemed to have them well drilled, and defensively, they were very sound, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of glad Scott Dan wasn't playing, but
yeah, I know.
I've seen what he's done to us in the past, and Zaha was, he had his moments, which he's always going to have. We just don't have that player where you can say, Callum Wilson's, especially the way he's playing now, is always going to get his chances. Last season it was, at certain times. But yeah, as you said earlier, no one's really seems to have figured us out a little bit. Nobody's scared of us. Everybody's sort of off form at the same point. We do have 3 of the next 4 at home, which might help a little bit, and we're going to start getting healthy. Stanislas, we've just been, on the wings, we're dying because of injuries to Brooks and Stanislas, and up top, obviously, I don't think anybody really addressed the striker position coming into the year, in that we always thought we had that depth up top, and now with one injury,
it's scary.
And a guy off form, it's almost like you've got 2 guys out.
Yeah,
Talk of bringing Surridge back.
Yeah.
Or bringing someone in the transfer window is just probably not going to happen striker wise. It's just very uninspired.
Yeah. So
it's the best way I can sort of put it.
Yeah, in terms of Eddie Howe, then there is a lot of debate, and a lot of people that are teetering with the possibility of entertaining the fact that he should go. You're not one of them, are you?
No, I mean, if Eddie does ever go, it's always going to be on his own terms.
Yeah.
If he got a job offer, today, would he bail after last night? But I think he knows with the training ground coming and the stadium coming. I think he's always going to be under pressure as a Premier League manager, but nowhere near. You have a run like this, he goes somewhere else next year and has a run like this say with Spurs or whoever, get results. And no, I mean, Eddie, he's going to go out on his own terms. I think he can be a bit stubborn at times. I think that's probably his weakest point. Yeah. With the veterans, but I think he's, some of his higher cost signings haven't come through as perhaps well as they should. But I think we've seen how we can play. It's just a frustrating thing with these players. But when you bring as many new guys in as we have, we've seen guys come in and not adapt to his system, and they've left. He obviously has who he wants in now. And again, the injury situation, it seems like we get a guy back, and then another guy gets hurt again.
Yeah,
I think out of the 6 guys we have out, I think half of those would probably start on a consistent basis. I mean, Brooks being the most. I think we're missing the most. Just that with the way Fraser's playing, I think Dan Juma's been a nice bright spark, but Brooks, that news yesterday that he's behind schedule is really devastating as well.
Yeah.
Because we really need as you said, when he's one of those players you can look at and you say, oh, he's a difference maker, and we just don't have that difference maker on the field at the moment. But no, I think Eddie. I don't think Eddie's ready to go. Yeah, and I don't think he should go. I mean, even if we're down, and if we do go down, who else would you want there other than him ready to bring us back? First shot.
I think there have been some mentions of some people like Lee Johnson and the Cowley brothers and a lot of people like that that just because they're young managers they somehow fit the mold, but I think it's a little bit more technical than that. But I think Eddie, he is best placed, and like you say, his stubbornness, loyalty, these are sort of things that are some of his weaknesses at the moment. And sometimes I just wonder, what accountability does he have? I mean, does Jason Tyndall question sort of Eddie Howe? Because pretty much everyone around Eddie is a sort of yes man, and I don't know, sometimes I think maybe he needs to just like step out the bubble and just see what other people are saying about him, and maybe take some other sort of opinions on board. But he's definitely the one for me to get us out of it. We've been on worse runs in the Premier League, and it always feels worse like on the day after a defeat, but history has shown us that we can turn it around. Now in our first Premier League season we did it in magnificent style, where we were on a bad run and then we drew with Everton, and then we got a win at Chelsea, we beat Man United at home. Can we realistically get anything from Liverpool on Saturday?
I mean, I think we can. We've seen how they can be beaten this season.
Yeah.
They obviously haven't been, but there's been times where they've scored the last 5 minutes or even in injury time to win it. Not perhaps come back from saving a loss, but I think we'd go out there and just. I think if he says to them this weekend, let's probably have a day off today, but Thursday, Friday, say, look, just maybe we do go 4-3-3 and just match them up. And just throw everything at it. I think if the players play a little looser and aren't scared they're not going to be scared to lose that game. They're expected to, obviously, by the bookmakers, even though we will be at home. I think the crowd's going to make a big difference. I think, hopefully they'll be behind the boys.
Yeah,
we won't have too many Liverpool fans sneaking in there and filling up seats that Bournemouth fans should be. But I think if the crowd gets behind, then getting off to a good start is a key. I think yesterday, from listening to the game, I was working when I listened to the whole thing, it just seemed like the crowd, even on the Palace side, wasn't into it. There was nothing in that first half that got anybody excited. And I think if we come out and get off to our normal flying start that we can at home and push Liverpool and say, all right, give us a bit of confidence, and then just why not just throw everything at it? Perhaps match them up with that 4-3-3.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see. I know we have Harry Wilson on the wing mostly because of need, but I think we'd like to see him play a little more centrally. I know that might not happen in a 4-3-3, but Stan, it was hopefully Kingy will be healthy.
That's right.
Because I think he'll be raring to go. He just gives us that bit of energy and that strength. And but again, I'd like to see some other changes too. But up top's the question: do you leave Callum in there?
Yeah.
Or it's one of those. I don't know him as a person. Sometimes when you bench players, likes of Fraser, he seems to sometimes thrive coming off the bench. But would Callum really thrive? You striker, you just got to keep striking. And give it a shot. It's just everyone is off form at the same time, unfortunately. Again, I think a game like this might be the kind of thing, if we go out on Saturday and win that one and then get a point at Chelsea, is everybody going to be back on the smiley train again. I don't know.
Well, exactly. It's the Bournemouth way, isn't it? And the fact that we have got some kind of optimism about playing the champions electorate. I mean, champions to beat. They probably are going to win the league. They seem very strong. Man City sort of dropping points here and there. Obviously there is a long way to go. However, side still little glimmer of optimism. So it's going to be interesting to see what it has now. Of course, we won't actually have Harry Wilson because of the loan clause, which is another scary thing, given he's our sort of biggest goal threat. So there will need to be changes made, and I just don't know what Eddie's going to do. But Ross, can I just say thank you so much for coming on at very short notice. We needed some reaction to Palace and just to gauge the general feeling. Are you going to be sort of starting to, I mean, when are you going to get over this? Are you going to start to be feeling sort of optimistic soon, or is it going to still take a couple of days to sink in?
I was feeling it last night when I got to I coached my son's under-12 team, and I got to practice last night, and I was feeling down. But once you get the kids out there running around and smiling and just having fun, it sort of brings it back to, it's only a game. They're undefeated this season with 3 wins, so that made me feel a little better. They haven't practiced since before we had Thanksgiving holiday here last week, so they were raring to go. We've got a game on Saturday, which will unfortunately force me to miss the Liverpool game, but I'll be able to keep in tabs, and hopefully we'll pull 2 wins out on Saturday and we'll all feel better about it. I mean, as in the end, it is just a game. I know people live and die by their teams on occasion, but you have to look at the big picture, I think, and this is a time, I think, for Bournemouth fans to do just that. Is look, we are where we are. I know you've got those out there that think we should be competing for, say, a Europa spot. Yeah. At this point, with the years we've been up here, but I think surviving as we've done and the progress we've got with the training ground, and I think there's plenty of positive things to look at despite the results of late. Yeah, no, I agree. Well, Ross, thank you very much for your input today, mate. Yeah, thanks, Sam. Appreciate all the hard work you do with the podcast as well. No worries at all. Well, yeah, if you got any thoughts on yesterday's game, put them in the comments below, because we would love to hear what you got to say. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast as well, on Monday there will be a podcast that we'll briefly touch on this game, but of course it will be all about the Liverpool one. And make sure you subscribe to YouTube as well, because there will be some more fan chats coming out throughout the day as well, gauging people's reaction and trying to untangle just what happened last night. But for now, up the cherries. Back in the day!